Hey everyone, welcome to episode 30 of PixlFeed Radio, and I'm with my friend right here, Bryan Clayton. How you doing, Bryan? How you doing today, man?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, for those of you that, of course, anytime. For those of you that don't know Bryan here, he started a little company. Well, it's not so little anymore, but I love the concept of it because it's basically, I guess the easiest way to describe it is like the Uber of lawn care for your house or your business or whatever. And I was looking into it, and dude, I love it. I love it. And even the story behind it, it's my favorite part. So before we start talking about it, let's, what I like to do here, and this is everybody's favorite part, believe it or not. They want to know how you got started, your background and all that good stuff. So before you give the golden nuggets of how you got to where you're at today, which is pretty high up there, let's go back to where it all started, man. So tell us your story. Like, were you one of those kids that was, selling stuff in school, or, obviously you were mowing yards at one point. So why don't you tell us your background, man?
Yeah, so lifelong entrepreneur. I've never had a boss. I've been in business for myself ever since I was 15 years old. I'll never forget the day. It was like a hot summer day. I was playing a Super Mario Kart, and my dad came into my room and said, "Hey, we got a job to do. We're going to go mow the neighbor's yard." And he forced me to go cut the neighbor's grass. And so he and I went across the street, mowed the neighbor's yard. We made $20 and we split it. And ever since then, I was hooked. I was hooked on owning a business, on being an entrepreneur. And by the end of that summer, I had like 5 or 10 customers in the neighborhood that I was cutting their yard for. And I did that all through high school, all through college.
Hold on. So let's slow down a little bit. So obviously, you got hooked on it. So how did you get your first? Those are your first clients, essentially. So how did you go knocking on doors? Or it was just like word of mouth? How did that start?
Yeah. So I needed a new pair of soccer cleats, and I wanted like these high dollar cleats at the time. They were like $100, and my parents were going to buy them for me. And I was like, okay, well, I know I can make $20 a week cutting this 1 yard. If I can get 5 yards a week, I can get the soccer cleats I want. And then I think I wanted to go to a soccer camp or something. And so I needed to make money to do these things I wanted to do. And so like mowing yards was the way to get the things that I wanted. So my dad and my mom were instrumental in like beating into my head that I could have anything I wanted so long as I was willing to hustle and work for it.
Yeah.
And by the time I graduated high school, I had something like 50 yards I was mowing. And I did that all through college. I paid my way through college cutting grass. And something weird happened when it was time to graduate college. I was faced with the decision. It's like, okay, do I double down this lawn mowing business, or do I enter the job market? At the time, I was making like $100,000 a year mowing yards, and this was like 2001.
Wow.
And my friends were like,
okay, so hold on. We went to school at the same time. So I was in college in 2001. So I was playing with Napster and building computers already. And you were doing the hard work, but trust me, I wasn't making anywhere near that in college. I was broken.
Yeah, I was hustling. It was hard work because I was going to school during the day. I mean, I was mowing yards during the day and going to school at night, and working every weekend. And by the time I graduated college, I had 2 helpers. I was making really good money. And I decided, okay, rather than like take a pay cut and go like work for somebody, I'm just going to like give myself 3 years to see what I can do with this business. And I wrote out a very crude business plan. And I said, okay, in 3 years, I want to have 10 employees. I want to be doing $1 million a year in revenue. And I want to have 4 trucks on the road. And I was able to do that in 2 years. And so little by little, I was growing that.
I come from a background of sales and marketing, obviously. So how did you get, your first accounts? Like, were you just knocking on doors, cold calling? Were you drop off, at the time pamphlets? I mean, what were you doing to grow the company so quickly?
Yeah, good question. So in the early days of starting that business, it was all like word of mouth and flyers. I would pass out tons of flyers all through the neighborhoods that I was mowing yards in. And I got to the first $1 million in revenue just off of sheer residential work. So doing your basic lawn mowing maintenance and yard maintenance for single family homes. And about year 2 or 3, I had a couple hundred clients that we were mowing yards for. And after that, I decided, okay, well, it's time to now get into the commercial piece of this business. And I didn't understand how hard that was going to be. So going from like single family homes to restaurants, apartment complexes, office complexes, hospitals, all that kind of stuff. And that's a totally different ballgame. And so how I made that kind of jump from the residential to the commercial side was I would literally like be cold calling business owners, like sitting in the truck watching two helpers mow yards. And so I was doing sales and running a lawn mowing crew at the same time. And doing that, I kind of understood, okay, this is kind of maybe how a sales process might work. And as time went on, I was able to get more revenue, and I was able to hire crew foremen to do the actual physical labor of it, and then remove myself from that and to focus only on the sales. And then for the first 5 years of running that business, I was the sales guy. I had many hats. One of them was sales manager and actually the salesperson. But as time went on, I was able to delegate a lot of these functions. I read a book called The E-Myth, which was instrumental in kind of my journey of learning how to build one of these businesses. And in that book, they talk about developing an org chart for your business and literally like defining all the roles that it takes to operate your business. So it could be like salesperson or sales manager, salesperson, prospector, closer, whatever. And it might be your name on all of these roles, but as time went on, I was able to like peel myself away from each one of those and hire people to help me with them only after I knew what our process was. And I spent years kind of cultivating and crafting that. And the being good at sales was one of the thrusts that helped me develop that company, growing it from just myself and a push mower over a 15 years period of time. I grew it to over $10 million a year in revenue and over 150 employees. 2013, I sold that company to one of the largest landscaping businesses in the nation. And after that, I retired. I basically was able to not work anymore. And then I said, okay, well, it's time for me. I got bored. It's time for me to get back in the game. And then I developed Greenpal. I recruited two co-founders, and now we're building Greenpal, which is the Uber for lawn mowing. So basically, I took all of my knowledge, developing a landscaping company from scratch, and I've applied it to Greenpal, which is the platform that makes the lawn mowing business run so much smoother and easier, and for both sides of the transaction, for homeowners looking for a lawn mowing service and for lawn mowing services to operate their business.
And the amazing part of it is that you have been in the business forever. So you know what you're talking. It's not like some guy in San Francisco just came up. It's like, hey, you know what? Let's just do one for, mowing yards. And they don't know anything about the actual business itself or like, how it really works. So having that knowledge and that background, it helps. It's an amazing help, because you know what people are looking for and what the people who are offering the services, what they want too, how much they need to make as well.
It's definitely been something that's helped us. It hasn't been the silver bullet. Like, it's not like I have this secret knowledge that is like our secret to success, but it's definitely something that's helped us not ever have to wonder about what we should be building or what problems we should be solving. And so like in the last 6-7 years, the Uber for X phenomenon, Uber for home cleaning, Uber for laundry service, Uber for massages. The problem has been just what you outlined. It was tech-oriented entrepreneurs who never actually cleaned a home for anybody in their entire life, trying to disrupt and to build a platform for the home cleaning business. And just in the home cleaning vertical, there's been something like $400 million of venture capital crashed into the ground. And so they couldn't figure out how to make that work. And in large part because they've actually never operated a maid service themselves.
Right.
Us, my background being in the landscaping business, I know like inherently, like in my DNA, these are the problems that occur on both sides of this transaction. This is what we need to build technology for to help make it run smoother. And so for us, we've been able to avoid a lot of those mistakes. Now, on the flip side, I had no technology background starting this business. I had no knowledge of how to design, develop, and build and distribute software. I didn't know how to do these things. So for my team and I, it was like a 3-year ramp, learning the skills on how do you design software, how do you craft the user experience, how do you design a marketplace, how do you develop the delicate orchestration between suppliers and buyers to make the harmony just right. And it took us years to figure that out. I could probably do in 3 months what took us 5 years to figure out now that I've done it. But so it's not like coming to a tech startup with just a pure blue collar background is like the silver bullet. It's not. You really kind of have to like go through the school of hard knocks on both sides of that journey of knowing like the brick and mortar piece of it, but also being able to execute the technology piece of it.
Absolutely. And one thing that I find interesting, because I've had a few people already on the show that they made enough money when they sold their first company or second company or whatever to retire. And it's like, it only lasts for like a week or two or a month. It's like, I had to do something else. And I'm the same way. Like I could never picture myself just retiring. You know what I mean? I think that's what makes us different. Like I have set up multiple streams of income that will run for the rest of my life online, you know, and I can just keep growing it and growing and growing. That's what I keep doing. But I could literally, if I wanted to, I could only work literally 1 hour a day, and I have teams in place who take care of everything else. But I work all day because I couldn't imagine not doing anything. Isn't that crazy? And I think that's what drives us. It's not. It gets to a point where it's not so much. I tell people this all the time, especially the people who are learning. I'm like, dude, at first I get it. You want to make a lot of money and you want your bills paid, and that's what's driving you. But it gets to a point that once the bills are paid, that's it. Like that's not your main focus anymore. You got to love what you're doing, or even if you don't love the product itself, you got to love the journey of making that product or platform or selling that product, the actual journey of business, learning, failing, improving, and you know, taking it to the next level. And that's what I enjoy. And it sounds like you do, like you do as well. So
that's tough. It's really, really, really tough because I hear what you're saying, and me and you have like, we're looking at it from the same paradigm but like somebody who's just getting started might hear that and say, oh, what he's telling me is that I don't need to hustle, and like I need to like just enjoy it, and like it'll manifest itself, and I don't need to like burn myself out and kill myself doing this.
Oh no, you're gonna work your ass off 24/7. I put in the time. I put in the time. Trust me. I struggle
with that. Like it's gonna suck. Like going from 0 to 1, it's just gonna suck. It's gonna be hard. You're not gonna enjoy it. But like you just said, I'm wired to love business. After I sold my first company and I retired for like 6 months, I realized like myself that my business is like the vehicle for my personal development. It's the vehicle that causes me to level up and causes me to grow as a human being, to become a better leader, manager, person. The humility, like selling that first company, like I retired, we didn't do residential lawn mowing anymore. Like we just didn't. And now I'm starting Greenpal, which is like the Uber for lawn mowing. And now I'm begging people to use this platform to get residential lawn mowing done. And like the first year, my two co-founders handed out flyers, like 100,000 of these things to get 100 people to use our first version. And that was humbling as hell. Yeah. And it was like good for me as a human being to go through that. And my business was the forcing function to have to go through that. So like, for me, like my businesses have always been the thing that causes me to develop as a person, as a man, to become better, sharper, smarter. Without the business, then like I'm just a slob laying on a beach drinking beer, and that's not who I want to be. And so, yeah, like for me, I'm at a point now where like I'm in the game because I have the love for the game, but I don't want somebody who's working a full-time job, who's thinking about going all in on their side hustle, to do it from a standpoint of saying like, oh yeah, like I just want to have balance and enjoy the journey, because I don't want to sell that. It's really going to suck. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it.
It's gonna be a lot of hard work. I actually said it on here before. Listen, if you want to work 5 days a week, 9 to 5, get a job. If you want to work 7 days a week, 16-hour days, then start your own business, because I put in years, and I mean years before to get to this point. It doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's one of the biggest lies that you see, especially in social media, like platforms like Instagram, and people only see your success. They don't see how long it took to get there and like everything you went through. You know, I remember being in crazy amount of credit card debt, not knowing how I was going to pay my bills because I went all in, right? And it was a lot of hard work. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't want anybody to listen to this and be like, oh yeah, just like work an hour a day. No. I have that luxury now. But it took a lot of years to get there. Trust me, ask my wife too. We've been together for a long time. She went through it with me. Bless her heart. Yeah. So all right, cool. So you sold the business. Now, when you decided to start a platform, did you just start learning yourself and building it yourself, and you hired a team, and then you were in the trenches, let's say, and with them trying to figure this whole thing out? What year was this?
Yeah, total naivete, a total under indexing of how hard it was going to be. It was summer of 2014. I decided, you know what? I see what Uber and Lyft are doing for ride sharing, Airbnbs doing for accommodations. Like, I know this platform needs to exist for what I have spent the last 15 years of my life doing. And so I recruited 2 co-founders. None of us had any tech knowledge at all, but we knew if we just got going on something, we would figure it out. So we paid a development shop, like a digital agency in Nashville, something like $150,000 to build the first version of Greenpal. And launched it, and we genuinely, our belief was that we would build this thing, launch it, and then market it, and we would just be off to the races. And nothing was further from how it turned out. It was a total, utter, unmitigated disaster of a failure. We launched it. It was a piece of crap. It didn't work. It was hard to use. Nobody really got any benefit out of it. But we learned a lot launching that first version. We passed out something like 100,000 flyers throughout Nashville, Tennessee, just to get people to try to use it. We got a few hundred people to use it. We met with every one of them that would meet with us. We spoke to every single one of them to try to understand, is this something that you would use? Where did we help? Where did we solve a problem for you? Where did we delight you, if ever? Where did it let you down? What did you think it was going to do? What did you wish it would do? And we used all of this feedback to bake it into the second version. So a couple things happened between that first version and the second was we clarified all of these false assumptions that we had. We thought our value proposition was the cheapest way to get your lawn mowed. After talking to a few hundred people that tried the product, that's not actually why they wanted to use it. They wanted to use it because they just needed somebody to come out and mow the damn grass tomorrow. They couldn't get anybody to show up. And so the reliability of being able to push a button and somebody actually show up was the value proposition that we needed to be working on, and not the cheapest way. So it clarified that. The second thing was we realized, okay, if we're going to be in the technology game, we got to be able to build and distribute technology. So we had to reinvent ourselves as business owners and just start pouring over blogs, taking tons of online courses just to learn how to build software, learn how to design software and distribute it. And a lot of times in the early days of going from 0 to 1 on an idea like this, it's like you're going to work 100 hours a week, because half the time you need to be pouring over blogs. You need to be watching every YouTube video you can get your hands on, listening to podcasts like this one, taking online courses to learn how to do the actual things that you're going to need to be doing to execute. And so for us, that's what the first 3 years was. It was like half the time just trying to learn the skills, the other half the time just being in the business, operating it, and then a sliver of the time being on the business, trying to develop systems around how to execute what it is we were trying to do. It took a very, 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 very long time to figure out what the hell it was we were doing. Now here we are 7 years later. We have 200,000 people using the platform. We have a $20 million run rate this year, even despite COVID. And it's going well now. But getting over the cold start the first 3 or 4 years was just excruciatingly hard. Yeah,
I tell people all the time, apps too, but I don't deal with apps as far as the design and deployment of apps. I deal with the marketing of sales funnels and e-commerce stores. I tell clients all the time when they approach me, I'm like, listen, I've been doing this a long time, so I know what works and what doesn't 90% of the time. But I can tell you right now, when I launched that funnel that first week, it might not work. I tell them all the time, I've had funnels where I had to change 28 times before I got the results. It's just one of those things that you think it's going to go that way, and then you got to study the data. So I tell people all the time, well, what do? We're watching everybody who lands on that funnel. I have heat maps. I have video. I know what they're reading, how far they're scrolling. Oh, let's split test this button. Let's split test this picture. Let's split test this headline. I mean, there's a lot of testing that goes into it if you want to do it. And I've never developed an app, but I know how it works. And I'm sure you guys have been through the same thing a million times, where you're split testing maybe where the button goes, or, where you play, the color of the button, or the marketing angle, like you were mentioning. And the other thing that you're bringing up that I tell people all the time as well is like, I never stopped learning either. I'd read new books every week. I always have a new book coming my way, in my field of, what I do, digital marketing, and everybody should be, because it changes so quickly. And you're not going to learn this stuff in college. So unless you're spending the money yourself and going through like the headaches or figuring stuff out, you always got to be learning from someone else, because there's always someone else who has done it previously. Well, most of the time at least. And you can learn from how they did it, and the information's out there. So it drives me crazy when people don't do all this research, Yeah,
exactly. And like so much time is going to be spent like in it, but you also got to be learning like how you're going to be doing the things that you're going to be doing in it. A book that helped me in the early days was the Startup Owner's Manual by Steve Blank. And one of a little simple heuristic that came out of that book was get, keep, grow. And so like getting people to use your platform, keeping them using it, and then leveraging those people to grow it. And so you have to like balance your time over these three functions in the early days. And so like everything that you just mentioned about funnels is like on that get side. And so that's like where like a specialist like you can kind of help somebody come in and help them understand that. But then as like the entrepreneur, they have to like go to the keep side. And it's like, what is it about the product, about the service that's actually working, that's getting people to stick around, to keep using it? Like half of your time needs to be spent there. And so it doesn't matter like how good you are at getting new users. If you can't keep them, then it's like pouring gasoline on wet leaves. And so for us, we spent like years trying to like oscillate between getting people to use it and keeping them, and trying to figure out where we focus our attention. It's like, do we need to go get 1,000 new people this month, or do we need to try to figure out why like 800 of them left? And trying to focus what little resources we had and firepower we had on, okay, do we focus on the product, or we focus on more distribution, is a really hard balance in the early days, particularly if you're bootstrapped. And so for me, the only way like my team and I could solve that was just through sheer hours, was just through coming in at 7 and leaving at 7 or 8 or 9, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week for 3 or 4 years. And like just that sheer brute force is what got us over that cold start to where we could learn the things we had to learn how to do and actually execute and do them, and then learn from our mistakes and just keep that flywheel going.
Yeah. There's a book called Modern Monopolies. Have you read it?
Mm-mm.
It's really
good.
I cannot remember who it's written by, but I can send the information later. It's called Modern Monopolies. And basically what the book is, and anybody who's listening to this should read it if you have a business or starting a business, is how not to just build an app, or not just to build a store or a product, but build an ecosystem, a platform, and it describes how like, Google, build all these different platforms, but they're all under the same umbrella, and how they share all the data that they acquire, from each different branch, and how they put it all together to its use. And that's how they use it to retain their clients, retain their customers, and use that data to get new customers. So, all right. So the company is going, you guys have a good sized user base. So where are you guys at right now? Are you trying, I know you mentioned figuring out how to retain customers, LTV and all that good stuff. But what are you guys focusing on to get new users onto the platform to use the app?
Yeah, so now here we are. We're 200,000 people using the platform on a weekly basis to get their lawn mowing done. Over 10,000 service providers use the platform to operate their lawn mowing business. We're in all 50 states. We're in every major city in the United States. What we're focusing on now is how do we continue to go deeper in all of the markets that we're in. If we've only got like 4% of the market share in Chicago, Illinois, how do we get that to 10? How do we get that to 15? Because to your point, the network effects that can go into these types of businesses, if you can reinforce those by going deeper and deeper rather than wider, if you can go deep and get more and more market share and reinforce all of the flywheel effects that go into one of these businesses, the more defensibility you have. So for us, it's like the more people that use Greenpal, the more lawn mowing services that want to use it. The more lawn mowing services that want to use it, the more competitive it is, the lower the prices go down. The lower the prices go down, the more people that want to use it, the more people that want to use it, the more lawn mowing services that want to use it. And so it's like a flywheel. And so we look at how we can reinforce that flywheel to make it even stronger and more defensible in every city that we're in. One of the hard things about a particular type of business like ours is that it's local. It's like the network effects are locally based. And so we have to build every single city from the ground up. And so we have to look at every market that we're in, and we have to tackle them on an individual basis. So that's what we're working on right now, is like, how do we, we're nationwide right now. We're in every major market. But how do we continue to pour gas on each of the little flywheels that we have in each one of those towns in order to make it stronger, better, and more efficient, to where it's cheaper for homeowners, more reliable for homeowners, and where lawn mowing services can make more money. So that's kind of what we're focusing on now, is looking at the data and looking at how we can step on the gas on those types of things.
Well, I can give you plenty of advice on how to step in the gas to get downloads and all that stuff. But I just thought about this. So you guys have, if you really think about it, I mean, you already know this, obviously. You have two marketing angles you have to think of, because one, you got to get users on the platform to make it successful, but you also need the other half to make it super successful, which is the actual service providers that are going to do the work.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how do you guys approach that? To get, did you go first after the people who provide the services? Obviously, I'm assuming you want to test area, city, or how did you guys do that?
True chicken and egg problem. In the early days, it was sheer hand-to-hand combat. So we spent 3 years in Nashville, Tennessee, before we launched our second market. And so the first few years was calling every single service provider on Craigslist, on Yelp, on Google, on Facebook, and just like pitching them on the idea. It's like, hey, we're building this platform. We feel like we can get you 10 or 20 customers this year. We just need you to try it and like work with us. And so like the first 2 years, every single service provider on the platform had my personal phone number, and they call and text me 7 days a week. Matter of fact, I gave free coaching to like the first 50 to 75 service providers that use the platform on how to grow their business. And so I was able to like build that stickiness by hand to onboard the supply base in the early years, because our value proposition was, quite frankly, weak. We didn't have the flood of homeowners that wanted to use the platform. We didn't really have the tools to make their business run smoother. We didn't really have the stickiness to keep their attention. So it was basically like me, like talking to them and developing a personal relationship with the first 100 to get it to where like they're like, okay, I kind of like these guys. I believe in what they're building. When a bid opportunity comes through, I'll quote it, and if somebody hires me, I'll go mow the yard. And so that's how the dynamic started early on. It was hand-to-hand combat, sheer hustle. Now here we are 6-7 years later, we have over 10,000 service providers. It's more of a strong value proposition of, okay, I can get you 100 clients this year. All you have to do is plug your business into our platform. We handle all of the marketing. We get you routed. We get you paid. We promote your business if you do well, and all you have to do is just show up when you're supposed to show up and mow the yard and do a great job. That's it. Greenpal handles everything else for you. It's a very strong value proposition today for suppliers versus when we started. It was that was much of a leap of faith. And so now that we have some momentum and some like piece of the mind share in this industry, supply side acquisition for us is not that difficult. In fact, it almost takes care of itself. We're more demand side constrained now, where we do marketing for the homeowner side to get them onto the platform. So then we can feed the suppliers that use the platform. But in the early days, to get over the cold start, it was very much hustle to get those folks onto the platform. So then when homeowners wanted to hire somebody, they were ready to be hired.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what are you guys doing right now as far as marketing to keep growing the app and to keep growing the user base?
So for us, 70% of new people that try the platform could just come through organic search. So if you're looking for lawn mowing services near me, lawn mowing service Chicago, Illinois, lawn mowing service Hollywood, Florida, lawn mowing service Trenton, New Jersey, whatever, we are part of that search result, and we have bet our company on SEO in terms of how much resources we allocate to it, how we've molded the platform around collecting data and curating data and surfacing that to Google. So Google will then reward those landing pages and show those when people are looking for those types of queries. And so for us, SEO is one of our biggest channels. You know, another big channel for us is word of mouth. It's hard to track that. It's hard to know exactly how much. We do see, like, in cities where we do have the flywheel rolling really strong, there's more word of mouth. And so it just reinforces everything. And so one way we juice that is through other paid channels like Facebook and Google. Although paid is less than 10% of our overall acquisition, most of it is word of mouth and just organic traffic.
Why is that? Because I'm curious to hear that when I hear that, because obviously SEO, I always recommend organic over everything, obviously. But, you know, are you trying to keep the growth rate at a certain level that you don't want to pour too much gas on the fire to grow it, or just the results you've seen in paid, they're not what you guys are looking for in terms of acquisition?
Yeah, so for us in paid, we're competing with competing with the high end and also the low end. And so with paid for us, we're competing with the likes of True Green, which is a $20 billion company, and they're selling more like chemical fertilization services, but they also bid on the same keywords that we bid on.
Right.
So like they can afford like a $50 CAC cost per acquisition, whereas like we need to be a lot lower than that. And so that's one of the challenges. The other challenge is we compete on the low end, which is like Chuck in a truck, Peter in a pickup, who doesn't really understand the economics of search traffic, but is going to try it for a season. And so they don't really even look at what they're spending. And so we're competing with that too. And like there's a never ending like flood river of those folks that just turn through Google AdWords and Facebook. So it makes it hard for us to make paid channels work. We do use them, but only as a means to like juice certain things that we're doing. Like if we had to build the whole company on paid, we wouldn't be here. And so that's happened a lot in our business. There's not any real direct competitors for what we do, but there's other similar type of Uber for lawn care apps. And they raise, 10, 20, $30 million of venture capital. They give it all to Google and Facebook. And then when that's gone, they don't have any sustainable channels and it's game over. We've seen a half dozen of them come and go over the last 5 years because they don't have any sustainable renewable channels. And they're just giving, all of their investor money for paid acquisition, and they're not able to sustain that growth if they don't have more money coming in. So
right, so, and that's when media buying, somebody that knows what they're doing, get the results that you need. Because on Facebook, I'm assuming the downloads for an app like yours, it has to be between a couple dollars at the most. And then if you calculate the LTV, I don't know what the LTV for your company is, but I'm assuming membership sites, everybody usually stays for 3 months. So it's probably somewhere on there. So the return should be there. But you did it the right way. I always tell people, listen, if you can start organically and build all that content, I do it. If you build your content, that's always going to be there. Always, It was
really, 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 really
and then just pour the gasoline on the fire when you want it, and you can control that growth, because it's slowly but surely. But you're not in a hurry. You guys are here for a long, long marathon.
That's my point. Is I do coaching for entrepreneurs in Nashville for free as a hobby, and so I see the business plan, right? And you see in acquisition strategy, customer acquisition strategy, SEO, and it's yeah. Holler at me in year 5.
Right. Yeah.
You can't just put those 3 letters. Solved.
Yeah.
It's so damn hard.
It is.
So hard to compete, and it's so hard to get your domain authority to a point where Google even knows who you are. It's such a slog, and it's 3 to 5 years before you see anything.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
It's don't just think you're just going to write those 3 letters down on your business plan and customer acquisition is handled, because it's not. It's just so much harder than that.
No.
And I'm not I'm trying to be realistic to anybody listening to this.
I want you to be realistic.
Yeah.
This is what I like. This is why I do what I do. I want you to be realistic. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you can, but you're going to be writing blog posts till midnight. You're going to be emailing 300 people a day to link to your stupid content, and you're going to be pitching journalists on stories so you can get into the media and maybe get a link out of it. And if you don't know what I'm saying then it's going to take you a lot longer to even get in the game. That's my point. It's like it's SEO's hard. It's a good strategy for us. We bet the company on it, but it's only in year 7 now that I'm able to say, yeah, that's our channel.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's going to take you, if you're just getting started as a startup, it's going to take you 2 or 3 years before you get any return out of it.
And that's the problem that you see. You brought it up with like companies, startups in Silicon Valley and Austin and all over the place nowadays. And it's not just Silicon Valley. It's that, I talk to a lot of VCs, through the connections that I have and the network that I have. And it's like, half of the time these guys, they're actually being more careful now, but it got to a point there, I think it was like a couple of years ago, where they would just hand over, because for people listening, I'm sure you know this, but for people listening, the way that venture capitalists work is it's basically, they predict, they go, okay, we're going to spend $500 million this year. And out of the 20 companies we acquire, one will hit and pay for all the other money wasted. That's basically how they do it. That's a short version, the stupid version of explaining it. So at one point they were just handing money just like crazy. And, these, I want to say kids, because some of them are kids. They're like 25, 21, some of them even 18. It's like, hey guys, here's $100 million, go for it. And they never worked a day in their life. So they're just like, they're getting a salary of $250,000. And they're like, okay, I'm running a business now. It's like, and that's why
silly, man.
It's so silly to me. It's like when I tell people all the time, like, listen, man, I handle so much money monthly from clients with advertising and stuff like that. And still to this day, I treat that money like my own because I know what it's like. Like, it's, it's a different mentality. And I'm sure you're the same way because you started, by yourself too. It's not, you can't look at it just like as monopoly money, It's like, well, if we run out, we'll get more, right?
Yeah. I'm not anti-VC. If the reality is, if you look on the home screen on your phone, pretty much every app there is going to be venture-backed and probably started in California. So I'm not like,
I'm not anti-VC either. I'm just saying some of the people that get this money, they just treat it like monopoly money. You know what I mean?
For me, for most entrepreneurs, it's a bad bet because the venture capitalist is placing like 20 bets. And only one has to hit versus you have your one thing. And so when you take that venture capital, you have to be willing to like sign up for that ride. And it's going to be like very much a get rich or die trying proposition. You're going to have to go for broke. You're going to be able to need to prove the growth of 400% year over year for the first 2 or 3 years. And with an unproven idea, that's going to be hard. And there's a lot of times it's going to be 3 or 4 years of your life. You're going to end up with nothing. But hey, at least maybe you have some lessons learned to where you can apply that to the next thing. Like a lot of times we don't understand as entrepreneurs and business owners, we read in the tech press, so-and-so raised 100 million or so-and-so exited for 500 million or whatever. And what we don't understand, at least I didn't, is that like a lot of times these teams, these founders are on their second or third try. They've already like crashed and burned like 10 million bucks into the ground doing other stuff. And they've taken those lessons and they've applied them to this thing that you're reading about. And so for me, a lot of times, like I didn't know that in the early years. And like, I would read like these stories and I would get bent out of shape. Like, damn, man, they did that in 3 years. Here I am 3 years later and I only got like 100,000 a year in revenue. Like, what the hell?
We all done it, man.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard. And so a lot of times you have to like check that. You have to understand, like, they've done this for 20 years and or 10, and they've been hacking on stuff for a long time, and they failed 2 or 3 times before this thing hit. So you have to like keep that in perspective. For me, most of the time, taking a venture capital is a bad bet for most entrepreneurs. For us, being bootstrapped is really one of the main reasons why we're here today and still in business.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you have to be the first one either. You can be the one that created the one that took the other ones and made a better product. I mean, most people don't even know this, but Facebook was the 6th social media platform when Zucks came up with it, and that was his second social media platform that he was developing. Yeah. So I mean, the guy's like obviously super smart, but at a whole different level. But I mean, it's not. Very, very rarely you hit it on the first one. One of the few Amazon, what's his name? Bezos, but Bezos he had an advantage. He went to Princeton. Well, he worked his ass off to go to Princeton because he didn't grow up with money. And then he got a job at a hedge fund firm in New York. And then he noticed that the internet was growing by, I think it was something crazy, like 2,000% in users, like a year or a month or whatever. And it's like, But, the guy is super smart, obviously. Yeah. And then he figured out, he actually did the research. What's the thing that people buy the most? And he was like, books, music. And that's how he started Amazon. But Amazon's been around since the 90s, man. It wasn't the beast that it is today, and it's
exactly
insane, obviously, so, but yeah, man,
a lot of times to that point, man, that's usually the case. I had a startup talk to me the other day. It's like, yeah, we want to do this thing in real estate. We want to do it like so-and-so. And like, they've been in it 2 years and they're making $20 million a year. And I'm like, that just doesn't sound right. What's the domain? And I popped it open, and that business had been at it since 2004.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, they've been grinding on this for a long time. And yeah, maybe you can fast follow and do it a little bit better, but let's not underestimate how long it takes to get these things going.
It takes a lot of work and it takes time.
Yes.
I'm telling you, it takes time. Like, even the stores that I built and sold, it took time to build them. It wasn't an overnight thing. You know what I mean? And the ones that I have now, they keep growing, but slowly but surely. Now I know what I'm doing, so it's a little bit different. But believe it or not, I still run into issues, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I got to figure this out. It's like that's my job.
Exactly.
So. All right, Bryan, man, we've been talking for like 45 minutes. I don't want to take any more of your time, but I really want to thank you for coming on. I have really enjoyed our conversation. The app is doing great, so. Tell people what the easiest way to find it. Obviously, the App Store, Google Store.
Yeah. Just download Greenpal in the App Store, Play Store, or go to yourgreenpal.com. If you've got better things to do than cut your grass, just sign up and you can get somebody in 60 seconds to come mow your yard for you.
For sure, man. I'll put the links down in the description. Everybody who's watching, thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you so much. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.